start with wishing you all well, and I hope you and your families are doing great. I know that your class is kind of an interesting situation in terms of away for the fall and then on campus expected for the spring. This has been a very interesting stretch of time for the Office of Financial Aid. We appreciate that you all have been doing a great job of working with electronic document submissions and responding to our requests in a timely manner. One of the outcomes that we're going to have, and this we're coordinating reasonably with Bursar and also Registrar, is that we are not going to be supporting in-person student visits as we start the year. So please plan to use the phone and email contacts as you have been over the summer, and keep using the electronic document submissions. Those things have been going well. Speaking only for financial aid, I know that we've had some sequences of times when we've been pretty far behind on our process, and then we catch up, things change, we get a little bit behind again. And so now heading into the start of the year, we're kind of starting to catch up again. So we do apologize for some missed service opportunities. It's been a challenge. We're doing the best we've been able to do. And we really appreciate your support and understanding. And I look forward to helping you tonight and into the future. So Jackie, on to you.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, as Marty said, this has been an interesting period of time for all of us. We've all been working remotely since the middle of March, and so we're learning to do a lot of new and different things and handle things in different ways. It has been a tremendous challenge for all of us. And as Marty said, we do appreciate your patience. We're trying very hard to give you the best service that we can. And we hope to continue to do that.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Martin. So this is again, good evening, everybody. Like, thank you for joining us here today. I'm Harshil Patel, the class of 2023 president, and here with me are my fellow class of 2023 council members who are going to be serving today as panelists, basically asking questions between Martin and between Jackie, questions directed towards both offices. And we basically have a list of 16 or so questions that have been asked by members of our cohort, members of our class. And each of us is going to take 3 to 4 questions and then ask between the two of them questions broken down into 4 sections. These 4 sections include questions about financial aid, questions about just the Bursar and any technical issues like that, questions regarding the international student community that have come up in recent weeks and months, and finally, which is still fairly important to us as sophomores, questions about work study. And so with that being said, our goal here is to clear those sort of issues, clear those sort of hesitations or concerns, and lay them here today for all to hear and to listen to. So in the first round of questions, these will be directed towards the financial aid portion. Colette will take the first 3 questions, and then Alex, and then Faizah, me, and then Jason will ask questions accordingly. All right. So without further ado, Colette, you can ask the first set of questions.
Thank you, Harshil. So hi, I'm Colette. I'm the class council's media representative. I've been sharing this event around to get a lot of eyes on it, and yeah, I'm glad you guys could all make it. So I have a couple questions to ask Martin and Jackie. The first one is, someone had said, and I quote, where is my financial aid? Where can I find it? And what has changed thus far?
Okay, at this point, in terms of individual student award statuses, the best way to follow up with that is going to be to send an email to our customer service email address. That's finaid, FINAID, @rpi.edu. At this point, we have gotten through most of our major populations, as we call them, as we do our returning student awarding. Certainly a factor is that we have a March 1st requested date for filing the FAFSA for 2021. And so we prioritize our work on who is filed in the most timely manner. And most of the kind of easy renewals in timely manner filing have been completed. For returning students, if you're selected for federal income verification, we must complete that first before we process your award. And so for example, today we sent out our missing information letters. And so if there's anything that you get about sending in a tax form or a verification statement, and you've not yet gotten your award, that's why. So meet the application requirements, let us verify your eligibility, and we can process your award. Otherwise, we would be looking at situations that might be a little bit more complex. And so that's why, again, some of the individual follow-ups are more necessary at this time. One of the things we've been working on is trying to get a little bit quicker with some of this work. So we're not quite exactly where we'd like to be, but the majority of returning students have been awarded regardless of class. And so that individual follow-up is going to be the best solution at this time.
Okay, thank you. So we have a second question. Someone said, I remember talking to someone about how it's possible for me to be considered as an independent by the school if I were paying all of my expenses, my own expenses, and had an apartment off campus, and as such increased my financial aid. They also said, is this the case? If not, assuming my parents are unwilling to support me financially, and they said they currently pay a large part of my tuition, is there any way I can get an increase in financial aid?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really great question. And at Rensselaer, we don't get that question a lot. So in some of our other presentations coming in, this might not have come up because generally Rensselaer is a pretty kind of traditional student environment in terms of coming out of high school. The students are starting out primarily as dependent students for the FAFSA, and then that status is going to follow them throughout their enrollment. Okay. So it's difficult once a student begins enrollment to kind of have the view switch that somehow now they've become independent.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I started in financial aid a long time ago in a faraway land, there used to be different rules around this. So if the question was being asked of a parent or an older sibling, they might have an answer that reflects a different rules environment than exists now. Okay, there's no longer an option where a student based on their own earnings or paying their own bill is considered automatically independent. When you go through the FAFSA, a good thing to do that I do anyways is I always keep a paper copy because the paper copy has more instructions than you're going to find online. But as you go through the session, you can see what makes a student independent. Not everybody wants to do the things that are necessary to become independent. Are you married when you filed the FAFSA? Do you have a dependent other than a spouse that you're supporting over 50%? Are you classified at risk of homeless by your high school counselor? Those are the types of things that make a student independent for federal aid. Otherwise, the view is that it's the family's responsibility to fund the education expenses, and financial aid is there to provide assistance to families that might not be able to do that effectively without those resources. So that bridges over to the question on, the parents not being willing to pay. Unfortunately, willingness to pay, we really can't do much about. Okay. What that can go into across the course of time, though, is that each year the FAFSA is going to be a little bit different. And at any one of the years, if it's we can't pay because there's been a job loss or there's been a natural disaster impacting our expenses, those are the types of things we can work with in terms of changing the view of eligibility. But if it's simply a matter of a family that has the ability to pay but chooses not to, that's a family decision that we are really not able to address.
Okay, thank you. And my last question for you is, someone said, how does financial aid work for the co-terminal graduate programs?
Sure, that's another really good question, and it's a good time for this question for your class. Because at least by the end of heading into your junior year, start of senior year, is when you're going to be thinking about, am I going to stay in an academic environment or move on to pursue my career? I personally am a big fan of our co-terminal programs because if you look at your financial aid award and you see your leadership scholarship or Rensselaer grant, we're going to renew those awards into your co-terminal enrollment period. So students in all majors would get at least 2 additional semesters of institutional aid, and architecture majors get additional because of their academic requirements. Okay. Same thing, if you're going from like engineering to an MBA, there's also an additional term in that scenario. The main idea is that your undergraduate Rensselaer aid will apply towards your graduate time frame and co-terminal, but not in other graduate pathways at Rensselaer. Okay, if it's not co-terminal, there still are awards provided by Office of Graduate Education, but that's decided by them, and that award might be lower than what you're getting as an undergraduate. So co-terminal, great program. Good question for now. Rensselaer aid continues. Pell eligible student, we provide a little bit of extra funding, and then that's at the time when a student can become independent, is when they're filing as a graduate student. And the upside is the parents are no longer on there, but the moderating factor is that the student loan eligibility goes up to $20,000 a year on the basic level, and then the student could borrow what is typically a parent loan and borrow up to the rest of their cost of attendance. And so co-terminal and graduate aid's a little bit different. Smoothest transition, most sure cost environment, do the co-terminal program.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was very well said. We have a couple more financial aid questions. This is all it for me, but I can pass the mic over to Alex, who has a couple more for you.
All right.
Hello, I'm Alex.
Hey,
I'm one of the
hey,
senators for the class of 2023. And then I'm going to start this with 2 questions for financial aid. They are very similar and some would even say related. So I'm going to probably ask them very close together. So the first one is, if I do not accept loans this semester, can I still request them in the spring semester?
Yes, you can. And that's a good question, particularly for you folks, because most of you will be saving housing billing charges this fall. Okay. So anytime you can pay the bill without borrowing, do it. Because in the long run, you don't want to have to be paying loans back, and that'll keep you from getting further ahead faster after you graduate. So for your class and any student, if you don't accept the loan at the start of the year, you're still eligible for the dollars at any time. We really prefer to have all the applications in and ready to process, certainly before the start of the term when you need the funds. But in terms of the calendar year, you could go almost kind of, even into like April. I would say April 1st, April Fool's Day, right? If it's April Fool's Day and you haven't applied for your loan yet and you want it, you better not be a fool and you better get in there and apply for your loan. Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind. But certainly you can decline the loan now and request it later in the year. That's not a problem at all.
Okay. Second one is, can you disperse a federal loan for only 1 semester? So assuming you get stuff portioned out for both of them and wanted to use it all for only 1.
Yes. That happens more easily in a scenario when the student wants the loan amount only for the second semester than when they want it only for the first. Because the certification is to be for the whole period of enrollment. And when we start out awarding, we're awarding for the whole year. So connecting to what that prior question was, if the student hasn't borrowed in the fall and they want to borrow in the spring, it's clear that they have the whole year of eligibility there. Okay. But if you want a loan only for the fall only, then we have to look at the fall only cost, your fall only aid, and then you might not qualify for that same whole annual amount within the 1 semester. Okay. It gets a little bit weedy at the student level, that's for sure. But that general concept is, yes, if you want to borrow 1 term at a time, we can help you with that. We would probably try to just suggest that you borrow only up to half of your eligibility for the year during the 1 term, so you don't over borrow. But ultimately for us, the program is designed to have 1 disbursement for each term. And for everybody's benefit, we would rather process the loan 1 time for the whole year. And then if you take the first disbursement and don't want the second, we just cancel it. Okay. We don't want to do 5,000 loans for the fall only and 5,000 loans for the spring only. We can have a little bit of noise around that kind of stuff, but not a lot.
Okay. And now we're going to switch gears to some more Bursar-oriented questions. Can I pay my tuition in full instead of setting up a payment plan?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm sure that there are people at the Institute that would much prefer that you pay your tuition in full upfront. But bear in mind that the tuition is due or was due August 7th. So if you're going to pay it all yourself and not do a payment plan, that's when the tuition was due. The payment plan gives you the option of spreading that pain out over the course of the semester. So, you know, if that's something you need to do, if you need time to accumulate the funds, then the payment plan is a better way to go. But there's no right or wrong way to pay your tuition. Just pay it.
And then can you describe the difference between SIS and the e-bill for me?
Okay, so the e-bill that you receive, I like to say it's like a paper bill that you receive in your mailbox. It's a picture of your account at a point in time. And the first one you got this year, this academic year, was at the beginning of July. And that's not going to be updated until September 1st when we run the next one. SIS is more real time, it's live. So as things are happening on your account, if you charge things at the bookstore, that goes on, you know, on a daily basis. So it's more live. The only time that SIS is a little bit hard to deal with is during the summer, because financial aid doesn't actually post to your student account until classes begin. So SIS is not going to show you your financial aid on your student account. You can go to the financial aid page and see your financial aid award, but you're not going to see the two pieces side by side in SIS. On your e-bill, as long as your package was available when we issued the e-bill, you should be able to see your financial aid on your e-bill.
All right. Now I'm going to hand it over to Faizah so she can continue with some more Bursar questions.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Faizah. I'm the acting VP for the 2023 class council. So my question is, are negative balances in my billing account returned via direct deposit / check? How soon does it occur after the semester starts?
Okay, so we will, financial aid will be credited to your students' accounts at the start of classes. So as soon as that happens, we start refunding credit balances because we're kind of required by federal regulation. If the money is coming from the federal government, we have to get that out within 14 days, and that is, you know, right to the student. So we will start refunding student credit balances after classes begin. If you are set up for direct deposit, which I highly recommend all of you do at this point in time, you will get your refund via direct deposit. There are advantages to doing that. Certainly you don't have to wait for the mail. And we run direct deposits every day, but we only run checks 3 days a week. Actually, right now, we're only running checks 1 time a week. So hopefully we'll get back to 3 times a week. But direct deposit is more quick, it's safer. And so if you want to set yourself up for direct deposit, if you're expecting a refund, that is definitely the way to go.
So I guess a follow-up question for that would be, where do you set up that direct deposit? Is that on SIS, CashNet?
There is a link to the direct deposit form in SIS. I can't tell you exactly where it's located in SIS, but it's on the student account, one of the student account pages. There's a link to the direct deposit form.
Okay. Also, I was wondering about last semester's credit that we got for when we came back for COVID, everyone moved back. Is that going to be reflected on the bill this year? Is that going to be refunded?
So when those credits were issued, they were all, for the most part, they were all held for whatever was the student's next semester. So if you didn't use it over the summer, many of the students that were here for Arch used that credit against their summer tuition. If you weren't here for the summer, it's being netted against your fall tuition. You may not be seeing that because it will be the balance forward that you see on your e-bill. If you had that credit, you should see the credit as your balance forward from the last time you received an e-bill.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. So the other question is, how do I submit the activity fee waiver if I'm remote and the health center waiver?
Okay, so this is a difficult question. As far as I understand, activity fee and health center fee are required of all students. This is a little different than may have happened in the past, and I know people are getting a hold of activity fee waivers from like the Rensselaer Union website or someplace, but I'm not sure that anyone is. The institute's policy is that all students, regardless of where they are taking courses on campus or online, are required to pay those fees. I am not aware if anyone, if it is being waived, it's being waived by the Rensselaer Union or the health center, and I'm not aware that they are doing that.
Okay, thank you. And the last one, I guess, is more for the insurance waiver. If you're not returning to campus and you want to file an insurance waiver, where would you do that?
There is, if you want to file an insurance waiver, it's on the health center website. There's a section on insurance and it's under there. It's called the Student Health Portal. And if you email Bursar at rpi.edu, I can give you the exact link. But there is a way, if you have to have other insurance to waive it if you're an active student. But like if you're an international student and you're studying at home in a foreign country, you don't need that insurance, so you can waive it.
Right. Okay, got it. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to hand it over to Harshil, and he's going to ask some more questions.
All right, thank you so much, Faizah. And Jackie, you make a good point. In fact, that was a perfect transition because the next portion of the sort of questions that I'm going to ask pertain to, one, the international student community, and two, afterwards, sets of questions directed towards work study. And so to continue on the discussion, it was brought up to me a couple of weeks ago that this was a pressing issue within, and you might need to enunciate the problems here, like the certain issues at hand, basically, where the room and board fee issues have been numerous and have been like repetitive and consistently like I guess like sort of like neglected or sort of put on the spot for international students. And would you be able to like enlighten the participants here, you know, just for the record, like why that is the case, or why like has so much like pressure been put on to like ask for like tuition back, or what forces are at work basically?
Gosh, I don't know where to begin with that one. So I will start with the international students and the room and board credits. And so you all are aware, this is not a decision that was made by the Bursar's office. Unfortunately, the Bursar's office has the pleasure of sending out the bill, but not all the charges that appear on the bill are under our control. And so when the credits were issued for room and board in the spring, we were given a list of students, international students, mostly international students. There were some that were not. Students were allowed to apply for permission to stay in housing after all other students went home. If the student applied for that housing and subsequently decided to either go back to their home country or they found housing elsewhere and they left campus, we were told that they would not get a refund on their room and board. So any of you who may have subsequently left, even if someone told you in Res Life or wherever that you were going to get a refund, we have no knowledge of that. So that has to be something that Res Life tells us. It is now okay to credit these students for their room and board in the spring. And so we have been referring all this time since March, we have been referring students to Res Life. I do know the latest communication that I've had with Res Life was that a list of some 90 students was sent to the AVPs and the VPs to review. That was just this past week, but I haven't heard any more regarding that particular situation. Is there more in that question, Herschel?
I'd say I think you hit a bunch of like nails on the point, like regarding like different, you know, sources of like information, like Res Life and event census spring, like students having to choose between in housing or versus like staying home, leaving campus or staying on campus. Is there any sort of like action that international students can take at this point? Like moving forward, like with like the fall semester or like to address any of those issues, like as of this point, what would be the best course of action is what I'm asking here for those students affected.
I guess my best suggestion is keep being a squeaky wheel, because if you keep advocating for yourself, eventually somebody's going to pay attention. If you just drop it, nothing's going to happen. But if you feel strongly that you're entitled to this, you just need to keep pushing. In fairness to all the people involved here, everyone has been extremely busy.
Absolutely.
There have been lots of decisions that have had to have been made, lots of different issues that have had to be addressed. So I'm not sure that not having heard anything means the answer is no. It just means we haven't addressed it yet.
And I guess like speaking like in the time frame, basically, like there's to keep pushing yeah, I just it's just a they should keep pushing. That's like the bottom line. But for how long, basically, or who would be like the person to like contact if not the Bursar about this?
Well, Residence Life is under the Vice President for Student Life. So I guess that's where I would work up that ladder. I'm hard pressed to tell you what else to do. I can appreciate it. It's very frustrating.
Of course, it's not. It's like the whole like system and like having like other departments. That's completely understandable. Like certain things the Bursar can't control, and certain things that the Office of the Financial Aid can't control. So, definitely like finding those starting points. As you said, like thank you for that question. Thank you for the answer that you gave.
Yeah, if you don't mind me kind of adding a thought to that, I think that that's one of the things that just being working with accounts and kind of having that sense around rules is that there is a point where everybody in the society needs to understand that at a certain point, you might not get the answer that you really want. Okay. And on an individual level, you have to kind of understand that we have rules, we're following rules, we're auditing all of these rules. We're trying to be as fair as we possibly can for as many students as we possibly can, but sometimes we just can't meet what the expectation is. And so it's reasonable to pursue, but there is at a point where as an adult, we all have to accept the fact that we didn't get the answer that we wanted and you need to move on. And so when I think about this topic, and I've heard Jackie answer a couple times, part of it is that when a student makes the request to stay in the residence halls in that type of environment, the college has to plan for how many people have to cook and clean and staff and monitor, and those things have to be decided. And so when the college is making business decisions based on that type of indicator from a student, it's difficult to unwind all that and then change the position. So make your decisions based on the best available information. Maybe don't make them too quick. We see that every once in a while in other areas as well, but I just wanted to add that insight as well.
Of course. Yeah, I'm sorry to hard press both of you for those questions, but you know, the people that wanted to hear that answer like have heard it now, so it's been like dispelled or where to go from here, I suppose. Thank you so much.
Yep,
Um,
sure.
So that was a very good discussion that we had. In terms of work study, which is also a concern with like within our classes as sophomores now, that's like a viable like sort of like option for us at this point. Several questions were basically composed, and I'll ask here. The first one being, has something been figured out for students with work study, or are we definitely not going to receive that portion of our aid this semester or this year? And I'll repeat that again. Has something been figured out for students with work study in our class, or are we definitely not going to receive that portion of aid, you know, like whatever amount associated with work study they're to receive for this semester or for this year?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great question. And actually, I was able to spend some time getting to the next level of detail on my work around this topic today, just kind of heading into the call. I think, again, on the concept of accepting reality for what it is sometimes, okay, last year we had 600 work study job positions that we could place students into in 2019-20 in a fairly typical year, okay? 2020, it's not so typical, right? Right now, with a week to go before classes, I only have 100 jobs that I can put students into. It is not mathematically possible for us to give every student who had a work award last year a work award for this coming year. It just can't happen. And so that's kind of my base then in terms of, okay, what are the program rules and how do I kind of corral the cats, so to speak, and kind of keep things moving forward with this. One of the things that came in the emergency provisions back in March was the ability for us to look at our federal work study allocation of funds from the federal government and to be able to convert some of that into grant money for students who are not able to work because of the pandemic impact to the campus work study environment. Okay, so we have surveyed the supervisors twice this summer about, do you plan to hire how many students? We've asked them, what students do you want to have come back? Okay, and with all that effort, like I said, we only have 100 jobs. The environment that is the background for that is that you have staff like Jackie and I, who we hire students in our departments periodically, but we're working from home. We can't be there to supervise. We can't have students handling financial documents remotely. Things like that come into play. And so at this point, I do not believe that we're going to end up with more than 200 jobs compared to 600. All right. And so when I look at what did the people earn last year who left, then I have a sense of how much is available for everyone else. And so we have not been putting the work study award into the financial aid packages because that's an implied quasi commitment that we know there's a reasonable opportunity that you're going to have a job. We don't know that. So we couldn't give awards out, and then everybody's expecting that award, and it's not possible. So what we are going to be looking at doing is that as we switch to converting to SEOG awards, we will be able to look back and see what students earned last year and provide a reasonable attempt to provide the student with a similar amount of money that they don't have to work for compared to what they did have to work for in 2019-20. We have some students that are what I call super earners. They earn well above what our standard award is. I would not be able to give those students a whole grant. So I have to look at how do I give the super earners a higher earning potential because that's their demonstrated history. And then I don't give more money to someone who's never worked. Okay. So all that rubber is going to meet the road here within the next week or so. Just so in the spirit of our conversation, one of the options I have to ask about with my vice president, John Wexler, is do we just throw a net around the jobs that we know about now and just stop playing the game with everything else and just start converting people over to the grant award instead of work? Because the departments aren't hiring, there aren't enough jobs for the students that want them, and I do not believe that's going to change significantly within the next 3 to 4 weeks. And so, and then everybody's here in the fall is going to be leaving at Thanksgiving. And so they're going to not be able to earn towards their potential.
Right.
So for your class coming back, and we can't just ask every student, what would you rather have? Okay, we can't really do that. We have to kind of dictate the environment. But that's kind of the question for yourself is, would you rather remain anxious about not having a work study award that you don't know whether you're going to earn or not? Or are you comfortable knowing that in this crazy environment, you might end up with a pretty decent grant award and you don't have to work and it's money towards your bill and it's a done deal? So that's kind of where we're at. And so seniors that are here on campus and any returning student that the department wanted to have back, we're trying to get them placed. The new freshmen who haven't worked a day, I have to figure out what to do with them. All the other classes in between, I'm going to work to try to renew as much of your money that you earned as grant as I can, knowing that there's limited dollars and a lot of students.
So that's a good point. And that sort of like segues into like this next question. So you should be able to, in that case, like you'd rather spend time like, so if I were like a student in my class and I were like considering those options, I'd rather like apply straight for the federal grant or instead of trying to get a work study. That's like the bottom line.
The bottom line is the bottom line. Yeah, that's not every student's going to feel the same way. If you're a student that earned $3,000 and I can only give you $500, you'd rather have the chance to work for the $3,000. So that's where I have to look at the super earners. And even if it's not giving them that work award, they're students that demonstrated they needed the funds and they did what it took to earn the money. And so they might end up with a little better grant instead of work. And then I got to spread it out across, several thousand other students.
Right. And so, thank you. And so my last question is sort of a corollary to that entire scenario. Are you open to like hearing individualized like cases? Because in this next question, the last question that I have for you, a student experienced a loss of financial aid due to like remote learning. They're going to like incur like a financial loss as a result of this semester. They no longer have a work study because of this. They live locally in the area, I assume, next to Albany or Troy. And they were deciding on whether to live on campus or commute in like the fall semester. And they asked, can I claim the financial aid that I was getting for room and board as a sort of like, or is that even negotiable at this point?
I'll see if I can kind of get around where that question is going, because I thought I saw a question kind of come up on the chat board about maybe how to apply for additional aid or what are the criteria for that? And then there was another question about are there going to be aid reductions because of the pandemic and stuff like that. So this kind of goes around a lot of different things. So Herschel, make sure I answer what the question really was. Okay. So in terms of applying for additional aid, we focus on financial need. And so we have a change of circumstance form that's available on our website. A family that is filing the FAFSA can report that their 2020 income is going to be significantly lower than what was on the FAFSA. And that's the process to go through in terms of requesting additional funding, is demonstrating that you have a different or a higher financial need. We do not give merit award increases after the start of enrollment. So requests for merit funds only is going to have also a financial connection. Okay. When it comes to the concept of reduction because of COVID-19, if you go out to the COVID information pages in the return to campus, you'll see there's a question and answer about this. And the answer is that there is not a change to the cost of attendance, and there is not an expected change to the financial aid. Okay. And to the best of what's in my heart and in my mind, that is our position for 2021. I do want to let you know, though, that based on what we've gone through, we have updated our language around revision of awards. The college has always had a statement that the college has the right to revise awards if business situations change that require us to do that. And so we've clarified in our student guide to financial aid that that would include national emergencies or natural disasters. Okay, so for now, we do not anticipate any changes to aid for the upcoming year for any students because of the pandemic. We had some discomfort around that over the summer for the students that were in the arts program, but that was a temporary situation, bridging from a prior year to a current year. Now that we're in the current year and have had a chance to look at the college financials, we do not see a need to do that, and that's not expected. So for this year, everything on that side should be pretty stable. Also, then part of that question, Herschel, I think, was that the student had a perception that they had lost aid because of the pandemic or something like that. Chances are that's not the case. The student might need a little bit more individual question and answer with us because if they're coming in with your class and they were not here over the summer, then their financial aid for 2021 should look pretty much the same as it did in 1920, unless there was an increase to the family income, a reduction to the number of family members in college, or maybe the student earned a lot of money that they hadn't earned in a prior year. There's not a reason that it's just because of the pandemic for a fall sophomore student that their award was reduced. Like we talked about earlier, it's an opposite opportunity. It's an opportunity to see that your charges are less and to borrow less, and your financial aid is going further and paying a higher percentage of your direct charges. That's what you should be experiencing for this fall.
Sure. And would you recommend for that person just to schedule an appointment with the office, like just in case they do have additional like questions, like personalized questions that to explain their scenario?
Oh, sure, absolutely. That's and it's always important to include your RIN because that helps us help you faster. But email's good. It gives us a chance to check your account first. When I get these questions, I look at the 2 different years. The way the federal rules work, there can be a very small difference in amount of adjusted gross income, and that matters whether or not they're counting family assets or not. So sometimes it's not going to seem logical to the student view as well. But by the time we get in and see how the filing changed from one year to the next, we can help them understand that. And then what we're seeing now is that like FAFSA started year 2018 and now it's 2020. You know, we can kind of see where the basic differences were and then kind of in the same flow say, okay, well, you must be asking this question for a reason. You must have a financial need we haven't identified clearly. So maybe you would benefit from filling out our change of family circumstances form so we can understand where you're at right now. So individual email is definitely the way to go for that one, Herschel.
All right. Thank you so much. That ends my list line of questions. I'll pass it over now to Jason to ask the rest of the work study questions.
Hi, I'm Jason. Just a rep for the class of 2023. And I think Harshil really went over most of the questions. Just if there were any other updates on the work-study program that probably would help.
Sure. I think, and thank you for the way you phrased that, Jason. I think that one thing that's on my mind right now is just the fact that the work study positions as a category are not approved for remote work by the college. Okay. And so just please be aware that I'm working with my vice president to reach out to Vice President Curtis Powell for Human Resources to try to get approval for remote work for work study when it's practical to do it. So like your group or with the union, planning student events and student activities in an online environment, to me, that work can be done remotely and almost the same as if you were in an office. But then again, there are other things like working in the lab or doing things with confidential student information. You can't do that remotely. And so we have to go through HR for that approval. If it's approved, we have more jobs. If not, please understand that that's one of the factors that limits the opportunity is simply if remote work for work study is not approved.
All right, thank you. So I think that's about it for all the main questions. There are a couple follow-up questions though that we have. One of which is, so you said that the activities fee is required and the, oh my, there's one other fee that was required, I'm sorry.
The health center fee.
Right, health center fee. And is it possible to not pay the health center fee if you're already covered?
No, well, that's a different fee. So there's the health center fee, the health insurance fee.
Right.
And the health insurance can be waived if you have other insurance, if you're covered elsewhere. I put the link to the student health portal in the chat so that anybody who wants to waive the health insurance can go ahead and do that.
All right. And then the other question for the other half of that, the activities fee, if we're not on campus, is the activities fee going towards things like testing and food catering for the dorms, or is it just still an activities fee?
So it's supposed to be an activities fee. I think that somebody put some verbiage on the website that I think was a little misleading. It is true that every place on campus we're having to spend extra money doing things for disinfecting and cleaning and such like that. But what should be, and I think the health center did a better job of explaining what they're doing. They're creating virtual programs, and if clubs want to meet, they can meet virtually, or they can create activities that are virtual activities. Because even kids on campus, let's face it, if you're on campus, you can't meet in groups bigger than 10 students. So if you have a club that's bigger than 10 students, it has to be accommodated online. So those are the kinds of things that are going to be accommodated by that activities fee, and the health center fee is, adjusting. And you're still going to be able to get all the services. If you need counseling, you can get virtual counseling or telemedicine or all of that. And so, all of these programs that both of these groups of people have had have now had to move to a virtual format so that they can provide it to students wherever they are.
Yeah. I guess a follow-up to that would be because it costs more to be on campus because of all the testing that we need, the food and the cost of cleaning. Where is that included in the cost of going?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the end of that. Where is that included? Where?
In your total cost presented to you by the Bursar's office on your bill.
I'm not sure that that's captured anywhere specifically.
Yeah.
That's probably just like everything else is built into your tuition. I mean, basically, your tuition number is what it costs us to present you with your education. Whatever is included in that. And so we're trying to make, you know, we're trying to make everything work using the tuition.
Limited resources, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and all right, so I'm gonna pass this on to Colette. Thank you for your time.
Hi, so we had a couple other questions that I saw pop up in the chat here. So there was one that peeked out for me. I saw someone say, I'm currently in LA, so when I'm at RPI, I'm required to pay for the RPI health and dental insurance, but couldn't find anything to opt out of it for the semester. They said it looks like it's a year-round thing. Do you have any information to pass on to them in regard to that?
I believe just like it was with Marty and the direct loans, that you can do that for, if you waive it, the waiver is good for the whole year. But if you want to pick it up in the spring semester, you can pick it up. But you might want to follow up on that, let's say in mid-November or so, to make sure that the health center gets the charge on your account. I think you probably have more time than that, because the health insurance actually covers you for a 6-month period, and it starts August 1st and runs through January 31st, and then it starts on February 1st again. So you can pick it up again.
Okay, that's good. Another question that I found, someone said, what do we do if you haven't heard back from the financial aid office? I understand you guys are very busy with trying to connect with everyone, asking questions and everything. They also said, how do we collect our leftover loan money if we don't need it for tuition?
Okay, I'll answer the second one first, because if there's excess financial aid on the award and after the bill is paid, there's a credit balance, then that shifts over into what Jackie described earlier in terms of having 14 days to turn around the credit balance and get it to the student. So if there's extra loan, then that would be electronic funds transfer if they signed up, or paper check to the campus address during the year. So that kind of takes care of that. And then Colette, could you repeat the first part of that, please?
Yes. They said, what do we do if you still haven't heard back from the financial aid office?
Okay.
Meaning they've been contacting them and haven't received a response as of yet.
Sure, I understand. And again, we apologize that we have not been on our game 100% related to some of the customer service. Please be aware that next week and then for the first 2 weeks of classes, we hope to reestablish our phone connection. And so we know that a lot of questions we get, if we had the student in an interactive situation, we'd be able to answer them more fully in less time. Okay, so
Right.
one thing that everybody can do to help out is simply please try to avoid sending us repeated editions of the same question in quick succession. Okay, you send us a note, you don't hear for a week, follow up, that's reasonable. 2 weeks, follow up, that's reasonable. You know, I get referrals from the class deans and some other folks when things are going really sideways for a student. Not everybody is going to end up that way. But if you are to the point where you're really very, very, very frustrated, then you can send an email to myself as the director. Again, certainly I'm not in a capacity to take 5,000 emails a day. So please focus it on if there's a real issue that is not yet resolved. Sometimes we get questions about where's my award and what's taking so long. But I'm getting a question from a student that filed in August, and I'm still trying to get through students that filed in June. Or it's a student that we've sent multiple requests to for documents necessary to award, and we haven't heard back. Another thing between years can be if the student's not making academic progress. If they don't resolve that, we're not going to send the award. So a lot of those that become more complicated that can take more time to hear back on kind of come back to bigger complicated situations anyways. So please just be patient. Right now, the email is the best way to go. Same thing, if you feel you've been reasonable and it's been a long time, you're going to email me. That's part of my job. But again, I can't solve everybody's problems. I don't have an unlimited budget. And so if it's a matter of a topic that can wait a little bit, then we would also ask that you just be patient and let us get back to you. But we know that's a problem, Colette. That's one of the worst parts of this whole time frame for me professionally is our inability to sustain a quality customer service experience. We need to get back on that, and we appreciate the students' feedback that's needed.
Yeah, I thank you for all that you guys are doing. I understand, like I said, I understand it's hectic. You're trying your best. That's good that you gave us some faith with what you just said. Thank you with everything. But I had one more question. Might be a bit hard to answer, but someone had said, do you foresee any reduction in financial aid for the class of 2023 in the coming semesters due to obviously the long-lasting financial effects of the coronavirus?
Yeah, I think we touched on that just briefly a little while ago. But again,
Right.
if you go out to the return to campus information and on the financial topics, you'll see this question. And the answer is that we're not changing the cost of attendance and we're not adjusting the aid. That's
Okay.
not expected to take place within 2021. And again, I can answer for the time frame. I don't have a crystal ball as much as I would love to have one.
Right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. Now I'll hand it back to Harshil, who can wrap up our meeting, I think.
All right. Well, thank you so much for stepping up for the follow-up questions, Jason and Colette. If there's any last minute questions that we have that we can take now, we'll accept them, I guess. We'll wait another minute or two. But other than that, thank you, Martin, and thank you, Jackie, for being here. I know with all of the bureaucracy and the red tape that you're dealing with, and also dealing with the chaos of this pandemic, you took time out of your schedules to be here basically, and to address all of those questions and to get our class on board with trying to cooperate with your departments, with your offices. And I applaud you for doing that and stepping up.
Sure, you're very welcome.
Yep.
And if there's any I know we were discussing this earlier, but I guess it would be the time to mention it now between the both of you. How would you like to continue to cooperate with our class or with students at RPI in respect to updating and sort of modernizing the financial aid and the Bursar websites? We
Well,
are the audio-visual generation, yes.
Yeah,
And,
I'm not going to tell Strategic Communications that you said that because they've just spent the last 3 years updating the websites to what you see now. So it is always a challenge. That's one thing, speaking for financial aid, is we've tried to post some instructional videos, but there's still so much policy talk and so many rules. It's really hard to get that stuff digested. But certainly moving forward, I'm open to doing these type of webinars again. Maybe you in your class would want one in December or something before really coming back for the spring. I'm very open to that. Same thing. I am stuck in administrator brain, right? I've been seeing these topics, the same thing, for 35 years. And so to hear what's important from the student perspective on the topics to touch, or how to maybe move to have some short videos to address that, then that's where I think we have the best opportunity to work together. And I know for myself, sometimes when I see a video and it's the student telling me the financial aid rule, I'm like, that's what I want for a Rensselaer. Rensselaer you guys don't want to hear me talk about this stuff all the time. You want to hear about it from your peers. And so let's find students who want to engage. We can do the scripting. We can do a mock presentation and then turn it over to you guys because your peers want to hear from you. They don't want to hear from me.
Of course. And I'm here pitching it to like to members of our class and members of our class council who are like computer science types and like who are like ITWS and like the data scientists, like techie people. So like they're interested to hear. And also like people that are taking notes here as well. I think a representative of the Poly is here and she's like sort of interested in this. Yeah. The
Okay,
Poly
topic
being
of-
like the newspaper at RPI for students. So
On the topic
You
of
guys still
this
have
in
a newspaper?
December, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, the Poly. Please read the Poly.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because on the Facebook overheard, people were saying, "Oh, I didn't know we don't have spring break," and I was like, "Well, if you read my article, I was thinking if you read my article 3 weeks ago, you would know that."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Sarah says that to you and Marty and Jackie because like members of our class like aren't avid readers and they don't like to sit down and like read like articles, and so having those videos would be certainly convenient. Certainly to like address in like a different sort of meeting or different sort of capacity.
Sure.
So on that, sorry, Marty.
No, you go ahead, Jackie. I'm done.
I'm just curious. We struggle in our office, and I'm sure Marty's office as well, with what is the best way to communicate with students. Because we do find that unless it's a very, very brief email, that students don't read the entire email. So if you could help us with that question, that would be great.
I recommend a podcast. I would definitely listen to it on my walks to work. But definitely, we're definitely gonna have to do this again in December. We definitely want to sit down with more of administration and answer some more big questions. I know parents are excited to hear about where the school is going as a whole and in general, what our plans are. I'm sure that there are definitely going to be a lot more follow-up questions that we're going to get as we send these videos out there and get more people to watch them and hear answers to the questions they have. So follow-up does sound fantastic. And then a webinar during Arch would be fantastic as well, because that does bring